If you would have told me last year that one of the best boss damage loadouts in the game consisted of 2 grenade launchers and an SMG, or that one of the best general loadouts in the game was an SMG, a fusion, and a grenade launcher, I would have told you that you were insane. And yet here we are, Season 7. This has become a reality. It technically has been a reality for a little while now, since Season 6. I know I've looked into grenade launchers more ever since I got my Mountaintop at the beginning of Season 7. But it's more recently come into the limelight because of a new raid that allows for good use of grenade launchers and because of the new Strike Pinnacle weapon. So much so that several of the top Crown of Sorrow boss damage weapons are all grenade launchers. Which begs the question, what happened? Let's go back to April 2018. I just made a video discussing grenade launchers, although discussing is a very generous term for what the video ended up becoming. Grenade launchers in PvE had basically no place at all, with them being not too bad in PvP. Nothing would change until Forsaken, where they were buffed by an undetermined amount in both damage and blast radius. Alright. But nothing really happened with grenade launchers back then either, besides some jokes with Edge Transit. Cluster bomb rockets were alive and well, and combined with tractor cannon, were torching Riven. It wasn't until grenade launchers were buffed again in Season of the Drifter, and cluster bomb rockets were nerfed, that grenade launchers would be thrust into the limelight. A 25% PvE damage buff and increased reserves came to grenade launchers, and combined with cluster bombs getting absolutely nuked and the Mountaintop Crucible Pinnacle weapon getting acquired by more people, this didn't so much thrust grenade launchers into the limelight as it did strap them onto a rocket ship and then sent them into space. They've power creeped their way forward as by far the best options. But just to test, I wanted to see how old rivals like Whisper, Darcy, Lord of Wolves, and Thunderlord fared against these beasts in the new raid, along with some newcomers like Outbreak Perfected. And I gotta say, it's almost not even close. Note that damage testing in this video was done on Gahlran himself, and that damage dealt to other targets may vary. Let's start with some of these grenade launchers to see what we're working against. Mountaintop is going to be up first. Note that shooting at Gahlran's head deals the most damage, even with grenade launchers. We're also not working with any buffs unless specified because I just wanted raw damage. Mountaintop at 750 with a 750 character deals a total of 115,267 damage per shot. That's the explosion damage plus the impact damage added together with spike grenade active on the weapon. At a rate of 90 RPM, we can fire 1.5 grenades per second, giving us a DPS potential of 172,900. With a boss spec mod, that damage per shot goes up to 124,522, with our DPS going up to 186,783. Let's try out Prospector now. My Prospector was not at max level, only 741, and with it, I deal a total of 94,493 damage per grenade, which is a bit less per shot than Mountaintop. But at 165 RPM, we're shooting really fast, 2.75 grenades per second, which gives us DPS of just under 260,000. Yeah, that's a lot. Prospector's main issue is ammo capacity, but with double reserves and the catalyst, you can bring that up pretty high, 22 rounds. Anarchy has been making some waves lately due to Mountaintop being such a good damage weapon. Anarchy is a completely passive weapon, meaning you can shoot grenades to activate the arc web effect and then swap to another weapon to deal damage. Anarchy has pretty high reserves, allowing you to tag an enemy and then shooting another shot on the ground and letting it passively deal damage to a big target while you handle other things. I frequently use this when I need to kill a knight or an ogre and maybe need to swap my witch's blessing. Anyway, Anarchy ticks twice per second, once every half second. On Gahlran at 750, I was getting passive ticks of 38,873. Doubling this gets our DPS, which is 77,746. But This is damage that's happening in the background, so we can more or less just add this to whatever other weapon we happen to be using at the time. It's not exactly the same as just adding it, but it's pretty close enough that we can just say that it is. If we added this to a boss spec Mountaintop, we get DPS of 264,529, which just barely edges out Prospector. How about Wendigo, the new pinnacle grenade launcher from the Vanguard? Seems like it has some potential. With our orb buff, a Wendigo shot is capable of 147,635 damage. At 120 RPM, we're firing 2 grenades per second. DPS potential is a whopping 295,270. But this only lasts for 6 shots, or however many orbs you happen to be standing on, unless you happen to make a situation happen where you've stockpiled a bunch of orbs in exactly the spot where you're standing in order to deal damage. For the most part, after your initial shots, the buff is going to drop off, and you're going to drop down in damage to a paltry 86,140 damage per shot without the buff, 172,280 DPS. So, our DPS range is somewhere in between 172 and 295,000. If we cut that directly in half, that's 233,000. We'll leave it there for the time being, even though it's technically a little less than that. So we're already looking at some insane damage when we stack Well of Radiance and Empowered Melee from Warlocks. While Melting Point, aka Hammer Strike, is technically possible to apply to Gahlran, it's much easier to just use a Tractor Cannon in this case, which buffs your damage dealt to Gahlran. But the bonus is only 33% for non-void sources. Void sources get a 50% damage buff, matching Hammer Strike. This means if we can find a void grenade launcher, we have a shot at finding something with very high potential. Oh, there's one. Swarm of the Raven from Iron Banner. It's a 150 RPM void grenade launcher. If you can find one with spike grenade on it, you're looking pretty good. As we saw with Mountaintop versus Prospector, rate of fire really matters. Swarm of the Raven hits for 109,083 damage with spike grenades on a direct hit on Gahlran. This is 15,000 damage more than Prospector at a loss of only 15 RPM. 150 RPM means we're firing off 2.5 grenades per second. And that means we're actually beating Prospector at 272,708 DPS. We aren't even including any other buffs, and we can put a boss mod in this thing too. A Tractor Cannon buff brings us up 50% in damage, eclipsing 400,000 DPS. Again, no boss spec. For reference, a Prospector with Tractor Cannon only goes up 33% in damage, going from 264 to 351,000 DPS. If Prospector gets the full 50% damage, it would be just under 400,000 at around 397. So that's a lot of damage. Where are our old veteran weapons? How are they doing in this new grenade launcher world? Let's start with Lord of Wolves. Lord of Wolves is currently busted in PvP due to the new Release the Wolves perk being able to be activated whenever you want. We can use this to our advantage in the raid by being able to rip through a bunch of ammo really quickly. Unfortunately, due to range, my damage per shot was pretty inconsistent, ranging from as high as 13,143 damage per shot to as low as 9,525. Keep in mind, I'm also not in a Luna Rift either, which could boost my range and thus damage. Let's take the ideal scenario from my tests. All 120 bullets you shoot hit for 13,143 damage. That's around 1.57 million damage. Lord of Wolves has an RPM of 640. 120 bullets divided by 640 RPM is 18.75%, which means we fire 120 bullets in 18.75% of a minute, which is 11.25 seconds. Our damage divided by our time is equal to 140,192 DPS, which is not close to our current champion grenade launchers. For this to come close to something like Prospector, our shots would need to do over 22,000 damage per bullet unbuffed. Whisper of the Worm, another veteran weapon. At 748 on a 745 character, Whisper was dealing 157,500 damage per shot with Whispered Breathing applied. At 72 rounds per minute, we're firing 1.2 shots per second, giving us DPS of 189,000. Respectable, but definitely not beating grenade launchers right now. Darcy was making some waves again due to Whisper's nerf, but Darcy has technically always been a competitor. A 750 Darcy was dealing 96,575 damage per shot with the Catalyst and perk applied. At 2.33 shots per second, our DPS for Darcy is 225,019. That is very respectable, actually pretty good. The difference between Darcy and Whisper continues to be damage per second versus total damage. Whisper is capable of higher total damage over the course of all of its shots, whereas Darcy can pump out damage much faster than Whisper. 1,000 Voices has been hit or miss in a lot of situations, so let's see how it's doing here. 7 shots takes just under 14 seconds to fire. Let's call it 13.5 if you're firing as fast as possible. 1 shot in our example is 333,210 damage. That's pretty good. That gives us about 2.3 million damage. If we divide that by the time it takes to deal that damage, we're looking at 172,776 DPS. Serviceable, sure, not at the top. Thunderlord is last on the list, critting for 8,444 damage. Thunderlord is a weird weapon to simulate because its RPM ramps up from 450 after a short time. If we go to 600 RPM, that's 10 rounds per second, which equates to around 84,000 DPS, not including the random thunder damage that you can proc. In that case, this damage doesn't even register on the scale of being an option. Even if we doubled that RPM to 1,200, it would just barely enter competitive territory. And by that, I mean it would be among the more worse options we've tested today. And that's if we doubled it to a rate of fire that doesn't exist. That's how not competitive Thunderlord is in the new raid currently. Outbreak Perfected is also a really difficult weapon to simulate because it all depends on how many people are using it at a time and because the damage scales up for so long. I will say that Outbreak Perfected is definitely not the best option once you are at level with the raid, but proved quite effective in the day 1 raid experience and for people at lower levels. This is due to the damage boost you get from multiple people using it, and because you could then use your special and heavy ammo to kill tough enemies during the actual fight. Now that contest isn't active, this really isn't as necessary. If you're not capable of one-phasing the boss for whatever reason, Outbreak is a decent option as long as your entire team is using it. It's a very safe 2-phase weapon. But so are a lot of other things. Like, Rat King. Rat King 2 cycles this boss too. So what do we take away from this? Well, grenade launchers are our new DPS lords. They've power crept really far ahead. Not only that, but they're a pretty easy weapon to use for damage purposes, and Gahlran's crit spot in his head, it's pretty difficult to miss. You just need to worry about accidentally blowing yourself up on someone's back. They're part of the reason that killing Gahlran so quickly is possible. That people were one-phasing him while contest was active. That people are one-phasing him with only 2 people in the team. Swarm of the Raven is from Iron Banner, random drop, so it's time to go get lucky. Otherwise, a Prospector will work just fine. I imagine a lot of you have one of those. Wendigo works too. You don't need a Mountaintop and an Anarchy for this raid, so don't worry if you don't have them. As for what will happen to grenade launchers, I think they'll be left untouched for this season, but I think everything is game for Shadowkeep for buffs and nerfs since it's such a major expansion. It would not shock me at all to see a nerf to their potency then. If you enjoyed this video, a positive rating is appreciated. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.